mighty crowd.
Right, they made the room sound full, yeah? Welcome to Days of the Dead Atlanta.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I want to open this up. I would love to know about you personally. I want to know about your acting journey and how you got involved in this craft.
Oh my.
Go back.
Well, I was born in Bristol, England, and my parents decided that they tried to build a house after the war, and it was just impossible. So they were given an opportunity to either go to Australia, but my dad didn't want to raise sheep, and or come to America, but via Canada. You needed a sponsor in those days to be able to come over. So we went to Canada. We were in Toronto for 2 years, and then we had this fabulous Pontiac car with the Indian head on the front, and it was just massive. And we drove cross country, and we ended up in El Segundo. So my mother didn't know anybody, and she wondered how she was going to meet people. So the landlady said, well, you should talk to Mrs. Robinson down the hall, because her daughter is in modeling and commercials and things like that. I don't know where my mother came up with the spunk to do it, but she went down and talked to Mrs. Robinson, and we ended up with this agent, Lola Moore, who you would go on cattle calls. It didn't matter. My sister and I both went on an interview for Somebody Up There Likes Me, which was with Pierre Angeli and Paul Newman. It was a boxing movie, and my sister was 3.5, and she got the part. I mean, I was 3.5 years older than she was. Why was I on that interview? It'd been a little weird in the crib. It was just like one of those weird things. I had thousands of freckles and long blonde hair, and looked totally all-American. I did peanut butter crisp. I was the Kellogg's girl. I did dancing with, sugar smacks and waking up with the little cock-a-doodle-doo guys and the snap, crackle, and pop. Rice Krispies, cornflakes. I mean, I did them all. And then I got a part in a Zangri theater when I was like 7, maybe 8. And it was with Barbara Stanwyck, played my mother, which was pretty cool. And she has to get shot on the street. It was a big Western that they did. And of course they poured Hershey's syrup all over, which, because it was black and white. That's what they used for blood, was Hershey's syrup. It was just so, it was fascinating. I just loved it. I was in tons of the Leave It to Beavers. I was Violet Rutherford. I gave Beaver's First Kiss, and I actually played several parts in that. And then I got this movie called The Children's Hour with Audrey Hepburn and Shirley MacLaine, and from that, Alfred Hitchcock saw me and cast me in The Birds, and then I did Spencer's Mountain, and I don't know, I've just been doing this now for the last 60 years.
And here we go. Now, you mentioned that you looked all-American. Did you happen to have an English accent like your folks, or no?
Yes, as a matter of fact, my sister, when she got Danny Thomas Show, or Make Room for Daddy, she would go, we're home now, we can be dirty again. Go, no, it's dirty. We're home now, we can be dirty again. No, dirty. So she had to learn how to go, get rid of that. And we did, doing commercials, I just had to react, so I didn't. But yeah, we sort of had to have it beaten out of us a little bit. But I didn't know we got the hang of it pretty soon. But then later on, I did a movie over in England called Inserts with Richard Dreyfuss, and Bob Hoskins' first movie. And that, I was supposed to be American, so and being British, I have dual citizenship, and so it was great.
My former colleague loves Inserts, has a huge poster, loaned me the DVD, so I watched it. I never heard it, and I thought, this is different.
It's wonderful. It was X-rated at the time, which is totally stupid.
Right.
It's just because of the C word that they use. And so that's why it got X-rated, I guess. Now it's NC-17. But we got to go to the Paris Film Festival. I mean, it was really, they treated us pretty fantastic when it came out because we shot it on a shoestring. And we went all over. It was great. We won silver in Berlin, I think it was. So, pretty cool.
Wow.
For a simple little movie, which was supposed to be an American house, and we just built it. All the people were contributed in props and everything. It was a wonderful movie if none of you have seen it before. So, I mean, your kids might not want to see it, but you're old enough.
Right. Well, you and your work have been a part of my life since I was just a little baby, right? And we talked about it a little bit last night, so I'm going to nerd out a little bit. Everyone's here for Alien. I'm going in a different direction. I'm going to get weird. I want to know about Baywatch.
Yes, I was in the pilot of Baywatch. My husband directed the pilot, Richard Compton. So he directed the pilot of Baywatch, and there was a part that needed to be, of course, the mother of Nation of Me. I said, well, what about me? I'd like to go to Hawaii, because the whole thing was shot in Hawaii. It was really cool. So, yeah, it was, apparently, my husband had a hard time because they were going off book and shooting things like, they were rug salesmen, the producers, and they had a lifeguard guy, and they were the ones who started doing Baywatch. And all of a sudden, the lifeguard is shooting a film of Parker Stevenson, and he got caught up in the pier, and he ended up with barnacle burns all over the back of him. Of course, nobody bothered to ask Richard. That's against Directors Guild rules. I mean, there were major problems.
So that was real, because that was part of the storyline. So that was real?
Yeah, that was real.
Oh my goodness.
So it was pretty interesting. But Hawaii's beautiful.
Yes. All right, moving on, Touched by an Angel.
Okay.
Beautiful episode.
It was a really beautiful episode, I thought. I enjoyed doing it, and it was one of my, I don't know, I felt really emotional about the whole thing. I thought it was, Patrick Flannery, what's his name called? Sean Patrick Flannery plays my son, and he's executed in the piece. And we've been estranged, but I get to go to the execution. They were going to dine her, and I don't know, it was very emotional. It felt really, really real, and it was a good episode.
Yes, it was. I may or may not own all the Touched by an Angel seasons on DVD, but I rewatched that episode recently, and I cried like a little baby. It still holds up. It's been 20 years. It still holds up.
It does.
You know?
So.
Yeah. All right, now horror, of course, is why we're here, and I love Candyman too.
Oh, Candyman too.
Can we talk about your experiences? Do you have any fun stories or not fun stories about Candyman 2?
Candyman 2 is directed by Bill Condon, who is just, oh God, he's such a wonderful director. I did a thing called Dead in the Water with Bill, and with Brian Brown, and I was supposed to be this sort of cougar woman who was after Brian Brown. It was a hoot of an episode if anybody, it's Dead in the Water, I mean. But, so Bill, I did that, then went and did Candyman 2 for him, and it was kind of weird walking, you get hooked and you have to die and stuff like that. It was like, how do you do that, It was an experience, so. Because you're not like getting physically something, I had to fall down the wall, I had to do the wall thing. It was cool, it was very cool. And then I did another movie with Bill. So I've done 3 things with Bill. So
What was the other one?
The other one was Kinsey.
What was that about?
Kinsey. It was about the sex, Liam Neeson plays my son, who's 3 years younger than I am. And then we had, and John Lithgow was his father, who I think he was the same age as Liam. It's amazing what they can do with makeup and everything like that. And he's a sex therapist. He's the one who came out with the whole book on sex therapy and experimenting with masturbation and things like that. So, pretty interesting. I'll tell you a weird story with that one. They had to do befores where you were really young, which was in the late 1800s, and I had a dress that was a corset, you know, so that it was, well, I was out with some friends, and because I used to live in New York, and it was out with some friends, and we went, and we had a few cocktails, and it started to rain, which I didn't realize, and I slipped, and I hit a fire hydrant, and the underwire of my bra broke 3 ribs. So, fortunately, I had a day off, so I went to St. Vincent's when it was still there, and of course there's nothing you could do for broken ribs, but I told our costumer, I said, I've broken 3 ribs. He goes, no one will ever know. And they put me in the corsets, and they corseted me up.
They casted you in.
Yeah, he just stuck me in there, and then I had to hold a 3-week-old baby. And I thought, oh gosh, please baby don't wake up. Please baby. The baby never woke up. Oh, was I pleased, because that would have been really bad. So Bill never knew that happened. And then I saw Bill when I was in New York a year or so ago, and I told him that story. He never knew, and Phil never told him.
Oh.
So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
And you kept your job.
I kept my job.
And Will and Grace.
Will and Grace, that was really fun. I actually was replacing somebody for that, and they had called and they sent me over tape. And when we shot, we had rehearsal on the Monday, which the rehearsal was just a read-through of the script from 12 o'clock till maybe 1 o'clock. And everybody went home, and then they took my measurements and everything. The next day I went in, and they got me all dressed up, we blocked everything, and we shot that night. So on that Tuesday night, we shot that entire scene, the entire show.
Wow.
So I was really impressed with myself.
You should be. Had you done a lot of homework before that?
I did a few things. I was on that, what was that? Leo, George and Leo, which was Judd Hirsch and Bob Newhart, who was just passed. And I was Jason Bateman's mother in that. And I hadn't done that much comedy. Not on stage I had, but not on TV. But I thought it was pretty fun.
You are. You are. The show had great writing and amazing talent, amazing guest stars. Hello. And last but not least, Body Snatchers, man.
Oh, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Such a good.
Bill Kaufman, absolutely fabulous.
Oh.
And then I did The Right Stuff with Phil, and also a movie called Twisted, which is very weird, but
Was it twisted?
it was very twisted. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, we shot it all up in San Francisco, and I was supposed to run these mud baths.
Yes.
And Jeff Goldblum was my husband. So this was before we even started shooting. They took us off to Dr. Bryan's, which is a mud bath place up there. It's amazing how many people do these mud baths. I mean, there's all these people. I mean, they think it's great for their systems and everything. Well, they hose you down. You get naked and they hose you all down like vigorously and put you on a huge big, which looks like a big pizza pallet, which is this big wooden pallet, and they kind of go like this and shove you into this huge bath of mud. And you're sort of, okay. And then she starts throwing it on you, and she says, move around. And you're like putting it on yourself. Well, I don't know what was in there, but after all the weight is on you, you start farting. Because of the weight and the heat. Well, as you start moving around, there's these, I was assuming they were like hunks of lava, but you weren't quite sure. And it's this big brown mud, and you're up to your neck in it. moving around in this stuff. It was hysterical. Then you get out of the thing, and then they spray you down with another hose, and then wrap you like a mummy in a thing. Well, when I came out, I mean, you're glowing. You're absolutely glowing. I come out, and Jeff Goldblum comes out of the inside, and the first thing he says is, "I don't know how sanitary that was." Exactly what he was talking about. Oh my God, that was a trip and a half. So then we go and we start shooting the movie, and then when they did have the mud bath, they had a lot thinner mud. It wasn't thick like that. But they sent me off. I got to do Swedish massage, so I was doing Swedish massage on all my friends. I did Chris Lloyd. I did Swedish massage on him, and Jack Nicholson. I roped him in. I roped all these people into giving Swedish massage. I get down to the set, and here's this enormous man. I couldn't even get my hands over the top of myself. How am I supposed to do Swedish massage on him? But it worked out okay.
So they gave you real massage training?
Yes, real massage training.
Really?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So aside from the massage training, how did you prepare for that role emotionally, physically? Did you see the original?
Oh yes, with big corn cobs. Yeah, that was a bit ridiculous. I mean, people walking around with big corn things with stuff hanging off of them. This
I
was
did love
interesting.
the homage to the original, though, with Kevin McCarthy running up the street in the beginning. That was a beautiful touch.
Yeah, that was great. And then if you watch it, you can see somebody, a priest swinging on a swing. That was Robert Duvall. So all these people were coming in and wanting little tiny. She's the one who didn't believe that. Why are we always assuming that things come in metal ships? I mean, why do we assume that? I mean, they could be living amongst us, and I was the wise one. Again, here I go, alien too. Nobody believes me. And so it was really a wonderful part, and I did not expect the end. And Donald Sutherland, he was a hoot and a half to work with. I was telling a couple of people, he insisted on having curly hair for this role. And so he had his hair set every day in pink permanent rods. So when all of our rehearsals was done in pink permanent rods. It was just absurd. It was like, what are we doing here? Anyway, at lunch, of course, he took him out, and we were up in San Francisco, so it's damp. So he had to have it redone in the afternoon. So finally, about 3 weeks before the end of the movie, he finally got a perm. He didn't want to ruin his hair, and hence, twice a day, you put permanent rods in your head. But it looked cool for the part. He liked it. He had this curl. He was just wild. He was just such a treat. He took Brooke and myself, his women, out to the top of the mark and to buy a champagne. We were going to have champagne. And so he ordered a bottle of Cristal. And so then they come back and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, we don't have any Cristal." He goes, "All right, come, ladies. Thank you." Up we go. We go off to another hotel to see if they had Cristal. He said, "Is there any champagne you can possibly drink?" I said, "Oh, okay, it's really good. Expensive, but good." So, yeah, he was just wild. And he's so gangly. He was so gangly and running downstairs, and everybody had their heart in their throat thinking, "Oh my God, is he going to fall over or something?" Because he's just like a big gangly giraffe. I mean, it's unbelievable. But he was very cool. Everybody was very cool on that movie. It was great.
Any memories of Leonard Nimoy?
Leonard, I didn't have that much with Leonard. I had 2 scenes with Leonard. But he was very nice, totally composed, and just, he was very sweet. So.
Okay, alien time.
Wanted to ask a question?
No, I was just having a sip.
Oh, you were having a sip.
Thank you.
All right. I thought that was a quick.
He's just eager alien time, yeah! How did Alien come into your life? What was your audition like for that?
Well, I auditioned actually in LA for the part of Ripley. And then I was going over to England. And so I said to my agent, would you check and see if that part is gone? Because if it hasn't, I'd like to audition in England. So I did. I went in and I auditioned for Ridley in England, again, as Ridley. And then came back to the States, and then I found out that I got it. I assumed for the part of Ridley. Much to my surprise, I get over there, and I went with my boyfriend, who was Jack Nicholson's chef. They were doing Shining over there. And so his mother had an apartment there. So we go over, and I'm staying there, and I get a call from the wardrobe department that said they want me to come in and do my wardrobe for Lambert. And I said, no, I'm Ripley. And they said, no, you're Lambert. I said, all right, let me find out about this. I called my agent. He said, no, you're Ripley. Then I called the producers and I said, I've never even read this part from, the script from the part of that crybaby. And so I would have to reread the script again. So I reread it, and I thought, well, I have to fight against her being a crybaby. So if you think about it, she's the only wise one. She says, let's draw straws, let's get off the ship. The shuttle's too small for all of us. Let's see who can be in there. So I think she was pretty wise. I ended up with being Lambert, but I understand that she's sort of what the audience was feeling. So yeah. I am the voice of the audience, in case you didn't know that. I remember my son is here, and I remember he wanted to watch it. He was 11 years old. He decided he'd watch it in the morning. It took him 3 mornings to watch it. And he's 6'7" now. So, but that was always so. Well, you get to the breakfast scene and you go, well, I think I'll watch the rest of it tomorrow. And so then the next morning he would come out and you'd watch a little bit more. Finally he got through it, and then you watched the whole thing. But I think just the thought of it was, too much or something. So, well, we were never given a premiere for it. I mean, it was very odd. I mean, it was a tough shoot. It was very tough. I mean, those sets were enormous, and everything was connected. I mean, when the spaceship, you had the engine room, and you had to walk through the engine room to get to the cafeteria part and to the hospital part. It was very claustrophobic, and it was a tough shoot, but it was worth it, I guess. Yeah. Everybody seems to be really pleased with it.
You have a legacy.
I have a legacy.
Yeah. We have one right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to know if you have any behind-the-scenes stories, any or all stories about the real hero of the film, Jonesy.
I don't. I didn't work with that cat.
No.
That wasn't my thing. But I was supposed to, they never shot my death. And my death was supposed to be up in a locker. Like this locker that he used to hide in, go up into the locker, Jonesy. That was supposed to be my death, and the alien was supposed to drag me out. But we never shot it. Instead, a couple weeks later, because I kept saying, when are we shooting my death? And they had me hung on a meat hook with a lovely jock strap. That they insisted, they wanted us to wear at one point, the point where the little thing opens up, and we're all now in little white boxers. And and I had to be the model for this horrible thing, so I guess they figured they had to get some use out of it. And that was interesting, because here we shot it, and then all of a sudden somebody comes along and says, well, we lose 6 countries if we see women's nipples.
Oh, wow.
So they stuck white tape around both Sigourney and myself. And so that we lost India, we lost all these major things if they saw nipples on the woman. Wow. Is that insane? That is just totally nuts. Well, try to get that damn tape off. You've been there for several hours in a hot, sweaty thing. That was not pleasant.
Did you just rip it off like
Oh,
a band-aid, or was it a slow process?
You had to rip. was terrible. Anyway, but I don't have any real stories of
And your son's like, Mom!
Oh, he's okay. He knows me.
Did
yeah.
you meet Giger on set?
Yes, Giger was on
And
set.
what was he like?
Well, he was very weird. He was very weird. He would always wear black, and he had a cape that had purple lining. And he was originally, the first time you saw him, was putting on the suit for Balaji, who was our alien, who was 7 foot tall, like he was from the Maasai tribe. So his arms were so long, and his hands were like below his kneecaps. And so by the time they put the gloves on him and everything like that, well, of course, he had to walk around in the suit. Actually, Tom is the one who said he needs to be able to sit down and suggested building a swing. They had a special swing so that Balaji could sit down, and he had enormous feet, and he would always be wearing crisp white teddies or blue teddies. I mean, so he would have this alien thing with big white teddies on the bottom. It was hysterical. But Giger was around a lot of the time, and just making sure that because all of those sets were him. I mean, they gave us a whole set of prints, which was really nice at the end, and they were all numbered. But what was I going to do? Where am I going to put them? Is big vaginas hanging on my wall? I thought, this isn't really my cup of tea. So I did sell them. But I got $9,000 for them, so that was good.
Yes, I always heard the rumor that you were not told about the chest burster scene, so the reaction would be real. So my question is, was that really true? And if so, how in God's name did you not break character?
Well, it was in the script, that, and actually we needed to see what it looked like because Sigourney and I were supposed to have a scene together where it's supposed to have already come out. So they took us down to the puppet shop and showed us the little puppet guy. Of course, he wasn't in the same color or anything, and they were so excited. Oh, it's going to breathe. Watch it breathe, and they're there with the pups and the things. And it's going to have teeth, and those teeth are going to, oh, well, that's exciting. But at least we knew what we were talking about. So then when we were left up in the dressing room for hours, 4 or 5 hours, we broke for lunch, and then we had to go back up in the dressing room. Harry Dean was sitting in the hallway playing a guitar, and everybody was like, what the hell is going on? Finally, they take us down, and John was there with a fake chest, and of course it was stuffed with all sorts of nuts and stuff. But what our initial thing was, you got onto it was all draped in plastic. Everything was plastic, and this big bucket of offal was there, which made you gag as you walked in. Oh, it's disgusting. Anyway, we get in, there's 4 cameras. Everybody has raincoats on. It's a little suspicious. And they started to shoot. They said, okay, this will be coming through. And of course, what the reactions were one-off, they were. But what happened was they started to shoot, and then Ridley shouts, cut. And he comes in, and he has them cut a little bit more on the t-shirt where the thing is supposed to come through. I mean, you've got a guy on a skateboard and stuff underneath the table. It's just, anyway, you don't see any of that. All you see is, well, I became so fascinated because it would clump out. I leaned right into a blood jet, and it hit me square in the face. Hence, oh my God. And then I backed up. It looked like a Max Sennett movie. It was like, da, 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 and then I disappeared. Because my knees hit the banquette. I flipped over the back of the banquette. I had 2 cowboy boots sitting up, and I thought, oh my God, they're still shooting. I rolled over and ran back in. But we got to go see the Russians on that. And apparently it has now been on it. Some, when they do the outtakes and stuff, it's on the newest version of that Alien release. It was so ridiculous. Bum, bum, bum. And then I disappeared. It was, so, I mean, yes, I mean, you sort of knew, but you were in the scene, and that was not planned at all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and did anybody notice that when I do die, then it's not me? Did anybody notice that? No. It's Harry Dean Stanton's legs, and he was wearing the blue suit and sneakers, and they washed out his blue pants, but he's still wearing sneakers, and that was him with the tail that went underneath. Wasn't me.
Really?
I was really pissed off.
Yeah.
And I saw that, because they said, how did that feel? I said, I don't know, ask Harry Dean. I was just beside myself. But, not that many people noticed, but now you'll notice.
Well, now I'm gonna watch just
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. Not me. Yeah.
Okay, well, now that we're on the things coming out of the stomach, I'm gonna go ahead and shoot off to another movie, which the Eastwick.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's not considered a horror movie per se, but the scene of you with the cherry pits was absolutely a horrific thing. Can you explain how the process went through and how was that a difficult scene to actually shoot?
Well, we shot for 5 days, that particular scene, and they did actually have buckets of cherries, and they put it in some sort of, whatever that preservative is, that's that slimy, clear stuff. So, I would put it on me and stuff like that, and spit the things out, but when they had made a mechanical body of me, so I had to go in originally and have 12 death masks made in different positions so that they could make this mechanical body, which is in the movie for like half a second. And then they decided not to use it because they kept breaking down. But here I am, 12 hours getting these masks made and throwing up positions, and the slime is going up, and they're going, you're doing great, you're doing great. And by the end, they're giving me margaritas. I'm sucking through a straw because I had 2 up my nose. I mean, it was just absolutely nuts making this thing. I survived, but they thought I'd been beaten when I went into the next day to get my insurance. They privately asked me if I had been beaten lately because all of this sucks. The latex sucks everything out. I had 2 bruises like this, looked like somebody had shoved me against a wall. And so I said, I guess it was the death masks, which is such an interesting, weird thing. So then when we did the scene, when we shot different parts of it, and me growling and doing all of that stuff, then they had a tube that went up my skirt and down into the pit of my hand here, so that when I throw up, it would, come out. And so that was the first tape that you saw was, and all of that stuff. So then they decided that they would shoot it again, and so they had to wash my hair, they had to get me all organized again. That took about an hour. So off we go to shoot the scene again, and I thought, like, this is nothing came out. Well, all of a sudden there was huge panic on the big tanks where they were pumping it from. They turned it up, and all of a sudden my hand went boom, like this. It was tied to my arm. It shot over the back of the set. Cherries were flying everywhere. I wiped out the camera because I couldn't control my arm. So all of those things where you see the China objects flying all over the place, that was my arm wiping them out. It was absolutely insane. It was just, we were all in hysterics afterwards because it was the most ridiculous thing. You just go, boom, like this. And literally, it shot over the top of the set. It was so stupid. But anyway, it was great. It was really such a fun part. I mean, so rarely do you get a fun part like that you get to play and sort of just be nuts, It was great. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I guess Jack, I had done Going South with Jack. I don't know if any of you had seen Going South. But apparently, the book has the character much older. She's an old, uptight person. But Jack always thought of her as the 4th witch because she knows what's going on, and the minute she tries to express it to anybody, he starts having the witches do things
That's
to
a
them.
theme with your characters.
Oh yeah. So, but Anyway, oh, a fun thing about Witches of Eastwick. When I fall down the stairs, I had worked with our Rochester, who was our sound man before, and we were having lunch, and he had decided to have ribs. And so then he says to me, you know, it'd be fun if we put the rib on your leg, and then we, you know, you could pretend that something's happened when you do the fall. So we ended up doing the scene, and the camera's up above, and then Cher and Susan, and they're all up on here, and then this camera comes down, and it goes down, and then they shoot the thing. And George goes, I don't know, it just doesn't look real enough. I said, Art has ribs for lunch. So that's what they did. And I had been in an accident in 1981 where I have scars on both sides of my leg, and a bone came out of my leg. So I said, well, I know where to place it. So they placed it right there, and they put Art's lunch on my leg. So it was like the bone came out.
Oh.
And the interesting thing, when I was in that accident, it was amazing how controlled I was. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I saw the bone, I knew it wasn't right. So I picked up my leg and pulled as hard as I could and pulled the bone back in. So when that whole scene happened, and I say, I think I broke my leg, there wasn't a panic. And I thought, well, I guess I was in that accident for a reason, because that's how you act, you know? So many weird things. Same thing with Alien.
Your nervous system protecting you.
Yeah, I guess so, because, you know, you go in a state of shock. And so the shock takes over, and you just start acting very reasonable. I mean, that guy, that asshole, he was backing his car up, so it looked right that he hadn't driven me off the road, because he wanted to pick up a hooker, and saw a hooker, and she was praying for me. I said, oh, fuck the praying, get over there and, you know, get him to stop moving the car. So, I mean, it was totally ridiculous. And he was an anesthesiologist to boot.
Oh my God.
Yep. So they assumed he was right, and it ended up we couldn't find him, and I had to go and have all the screws and everything taken out about a year and a half later, 2 years later, and go to Lucy's Adobe, which was this famous French restaurant. It was a taco Mexican restaurant. And we had gone there, and I'm standing in line, and my husband looks at me and he goes, what's the matter? I said, that's him. And he walked into the restaurant. I guess all the blood drained from my face. So we kept an eye on him, and we followed him like Nick and Nora Charles. And we tracked him down, and we called the detectives, and they tracked him down, and he had sold everything, got rid of it. He had been doing operations without talking to people, pre-ops, nothing. Drunk on the job, yeah. Really, and I wasn't allowed to bring any of that up in arbitration because it took so long to get. And I lost 2 jobs. I was doing a movie for HBO and a play, and so I lost both of those jobs while this asshole just disappeared. So anyway, but all things work out for a reason, and I got Witches of Eastwick, and
A great
see,
story.
that was my reaction, which I wouldn't have known if you never know how you're going to react and things. So
I saw a hand over here somewhere. Was it you? Yeah.
You just signed an action figure of yourself for me.
oh yes.
How does it feel to see yourself, you know, in video games and shows?
Well, I'd like to get paid for it, but I don't. We shot that movie in what, 1978? Nobody thought. It was 13 years later, wasn't it? 13 years later that what's his name did the sequel. Cameron did the sequel.
7.
So I mean, nobody thought at the time of doing action figures or anything like that. So it's kind of cool to see it. There is one of me screaming. I know. My son went to try and find it, but it all sold out. So I don't have one.
We'll find one for you.
Just wondering if you have any fondest memories of working on Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone. Well, I actually got to see Rod Serling do his piece. He apparently did it every week.
Wow.
He comes in, he sits on that stool, and he was kind of behind a curtain, and so I got to watch him do his little spiel for that particular episode. That was cool, because I used to watch it. But apparently he came in every week and did one. So that was cool. And smoking a cigarette. I mean, unbelievable. He never had a cigarette out of his hand. But it was a fun experience doing that. So.
And there's one back there.
I was going to ask if you had any memories or of your experiences working with Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah. Well, that movie, The Children's Hour, was very special. She was lovely. She had a little Yorkie Terrier, I remember, that she used to walk around with all the time. She was very, didn't talk much, just very sort of sweet and kind, and the one that got me though was Shirley MacLaine. So she was sort of my inspiration for even staying in the business and wanting to do it. It was interesting doing that part because, of course, I don't know if you've all seen it, but it's about lesbians. And my mother, we used to take little acting classes, and I had Frank Wyka and Bill Lockwood. And Bill Lockwood used to do the musicals and the singing classes and stuff like that. And so a lot of people pulled their kids out of that movie because of what the subject matter was. And my mom said to us, this was 1961, which she's Catholic. I mean, it was pretty amazing. She goes, oh, it's just like Frank and Bill and two women. Now, that was pretty amazing for that period of time. Well, it occurred to me that I didn't see anything wrong with that. I mean, I love Frank and Bill, so that seemed all right. So when I do tell the lie, I'm actually telling the lie. But Shirley MacLaine, when I had a big breakdown scene, she came over and she hugged me and she goes, oh, that was so wonderful, honey. And she just sort of, I remember sitting and watching her do wardrobe. And she was on a sort of a pedestal thing where she would have to turn slowly so that they could, see it. Because those are the days they used to put everything on film so they could see what the costume looked like and everything like that. And she was cracking the crew up. She was talking to the crew. We were told not to hang out by Shirley because she used that language. But I just thought that was so fascinating and how everybody just loved her. The crew loved her, and I thought, that's what you've got to do. So years later, I am doing a play in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, and they had the Christmas parade. And I had a dream about Shirley MacLaine. It was so weird. On the end of a big swimming pool in Las Vegas for some reason. And I remember walking down there, and I said to her, you are the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. So here I'm doing this play. She's doing a one-woman show down on Wilshire Boulevard, and it was Christmas parade, so they had to shut Hollywood and Vine down. So I thought, I'm going to go see her show. So after the show, which she was sensational, after the show, I went back and I said, I'd really like to see Shirley MacLaine. I was in a movie with her years ago. And they said, well, you're not on the list. I said, well, could you ask her? So they went back, and Shirley's standing there, and she looked at me and she says, I have followed your career. I mean, oh my God, it was like it was just something really special. So, yeah, she was cool. So it was really Shirley. And
Did you say what you dreamt you would say?
oh, I did. Well, no, I dreamt. I told her about the dream. I thought, this is really weird because she has all that book about dreams and everything.
Yeah.
I thought, this is really appropriate. Anyway, but Audrey Hepburn was very sweet. I mean, I didn't have that much interaction with her, but except for this couple of scenes that we had together. So, and that little Yorkie.
Anyone else out there? Right there.
So I know that in the movie Alien, you and Sigourney's characters had a bit of an animosity towards each other because she didn't want to let you onto the ship because Kane was infected, and you wanted to be let onto the ship. And I know there's a deleted scene like when you slap her, and I also know that how you had mentioned that you were up for the role of Ripley, but she got it instead. Was there any real life animosity between the two of you?
No, we shared a dressing room, actually. No, but what was interesting about that scene, which was cut out, and it wasn't in the original, but it was in the director's cut. Every time I went to slap her, she would duck. So I would go like this, and then she'd duck. And Ridley comes over. This was like 3 or 4 times, and it just, he said, "Would you just can get her this time?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay." So I went like that, and she ducked, and I backhanded. She went right into it, and oh my God, instant tears, and oh, she was pissed. But we got through the scene, and so it worked. I mean, it worked. I was pissed off at her for not letting us on.
Do you still stay in contact, or?
No, every once in a while. She came to see a play I did in New York, but just. Well, actually, we didn't get along so well.
That's what I was wondering. If that's the case.
And so I got a call. I don't know. I was in New York visiting friends, and I don't know how she got the phone number or anything, but she called and apologized because I told her I thought she was being an asshole, and that she just thought she was better than any of us, and there were only 7 of us, and she really didn't have the right to do that. And she called and apologized, and she said, "You were absolutely right." We ended up having to do several tours. We went to Chicago and different places, and so, I mean, all things I guess are for a reason, So, yeah, it was, well, because she was brought in, nobody knew who she was. She'd never done anything before, and she was just sort of very Yaley, and but everything worked out for the best. So.
Being that you wanted the Ripley position first, was there a particular Ripley scene that you really were dying to do that you wanted to do?
I can't remember what the scenes were. We had to do several scenes, and they were all Ripley. I mean, that's all I auditioned with. I can't really remember what they were now because I ended up being Lambert. There's no. You can't cry over spilled milk.
To do?
I'm sorry?
Is there one that, like, if your positions were worse, you said that I really wished I had been able to do that one?
No, I didn't bother to think of it after I became Lambert. I know you were dirt.
How did you become involved with The Invasion with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig?
Actually, Oliver Hirschbiegel, who was the director, he requested meeting me, and so I went down and I met him, and we just talked, and I didn't have to read any scenes or anything, but I mean, in a weird sort of way, she could have easily have been Nancy and darkened her hair and just sort of melted into humanity, and then all of a sudden there's her husband, going off the deep end. So, but it was Oliver who requested, and it was so funny because Daniel Craig is darling, and he had gone off. He'd just become. He was off auditioning for Bond. I don't know how many times he had to do that. And he came back, and he found out when we were shooting that he was going to be James Bond. So that was kind of cool. He likes martinis. He and I had a couple of martinis together. So he's just a sweetie. And it turned out he lived very close to where I am. He says, "Well, maybe I'll run into you at Trader Joe's." But then, the movie has 2 directors. I mean, it was Oliver, and then I don't know what happened, but they ended up getting somebody who had done The Matrix, the original Matrix, I think it was The Matrix. And he came in, an Australian director. And I don't know what they did. They reshot scenes and stuff like that. And reshot my scene and all these different scenes. And it looks kind of lopsided, I think, the movie. I don't know whether you found that. Like the grocery store scene it seems like there were parts and then other parts, and it was like 2 different movies somehow. So, I don't know, I don't think it did very well, did it? Boo.
Okay, last call for questions before I wrap us up. In the back.
On the birds, did you celebrate a birthday on the birds?
I did my 13th birthday on the birds. And it was right after we'd shot the scene where all the little finches come down, the 1,500 of those little birds coming down the chutes. And we were all in a big plastic bubble with an oxygen tank, you know, and then the birds were in a shaft in the chimney. And they were all sent down, and then they were just flying everywhere, and then they'd be all scooped up, and we'd shoot it again. Well, it was that day, of course, I was very emotional. And they take me to another part of the set, and the entire crew's there, a huge big cake, and Alfred Hitchcock, and Jessica gave me a sweater, and Tippy gave me lovebirds, and then Alfred said to his assistant, Peggy, and she handed him a piece of whiteboard with a black crayon, and he wrote, "To the woman I love, Veronica," then drew his face and signed it. So I have that in my office. It was very cool. I loved him. I thought he was terrific. He couldn't have been funnier. He was nice and totally unintimidating. I could ask him questions about how things were done. And he just would stand there and he'd explain it, like walking out of at the end of the movie when we're all walking out of the door, there was no door. And I said, well, there's no door. He says, well, how would I shoot you with that? Because I can't have a door, I wouldn't be able to see you. So he says, let's show it, Rod. So Rod Taylor mimes the whole thing, and he leans down, he sort of turns the knob, and he goes like this, and this shaft of light goes on her face, and then all of a sudden it's light. And he says, you see, Veronica, that's the magic of movies. I mean, he just, I don't know, he was never intimidating. I could ask anything about the birds on the jungle gym, or birds on the wires. So many of them were fake, and that there were all sorts of real birds too. And I said, well, people notice. And he goes, well, your eye sees movement, and you assume everything is alive. And to this day, you can watch that jungle gym. You can't pick out the ones that are fake and which ones aren't. I mean, your eye does tricks for you. It's the same thing in Psycho. Never saw a body being stabbed. You just assumed it. It was all those quick cuts of, your imagination does all the work, and that was a big thing for him. And when we did Alien, Ridley studied Alfred Hitchcock. So much stuff was like Alfred Hitchcock. You never see that alien in the beginning. It's just something. What is that? What's up in that rafters? Parts of it. You never see it until the end.
The unknown.
And then it's all of a sudden, you've built up such anxiety about what it is. And one of the scariest scenes is the one where she's in the shuttle at the end, and he's right behind her. And all the pipes and everything like that, and then he just steps out. That's really scary. That was great. But Balaji was unbelievable. He could twist himself into positions with that suit on and that huge head. At one point, he wanted to put maggots in there, like brain. He goes, well, I'm not sticking that on my head. I drove it. Enough is enough. And they have big boxes of blue and red and white maggots. And they show a shot of it, but they weren't able to put it on his head. He said, forget it. You're paying me enough to do that.
All right, last audience question, gentlemen, they got right there, yeah.
Kind of in addition to Alfred Hitchcock, throughout your career, you kind of worked with some of the best directors ever: George Miller, Ridley Scott, Alfred Hitchcock. Do you have a favorite?
Well, George was great. George was a lot of fun. No, I don't really have a favorite. I worked 3 times with Phil Kaufman. He's absolutely divine. He really knows how to work with actors, which is really great. Ridley never really talked to us the whole time he did. We were pieces of scenery that he sort of moved around. Ridley's eye is to do visual, and so he just got a really great cast together and could trust us, and to do things. That was our directions, I couldn't slap her. Just fucking get her this time. To Yaphet, he'd say, just piss her off. And so the scene where, it was terrible because Yaphet loved things like this. The scene where Dallas is dead and she's now captain of the ship. And so she came in, and there had originally been sort of a little intimate scene between them to and they decided they just didn't need it, so it wasn't even shot. And but she was coming off of that, and I'm captain of the ship, and she was very weepy and everything, and the pilot would just bang down his gun and go, "Oh, fuck you," and then he'd walk off, and so he just started getting more and more pissed off. I mean, and at one point he says, "I'm black as can be, and I have an entire following, and you're standing there saying, I could be a captain of this ship." Oh, he just was terrible. She was getting angrier and angrier. So finally he comes in and she says, "I am the captain of the ship and this is what's happening." And if you watch the movie, he slams the gun down and he goes, "Okay." I mean, but his direction was, piss her off. That was his direction. I mean, things like that would happen all the time. That was Ridley's, how he directed. So, I finally got to talk to him one day when we were in the shuttle, because he didn't talk very much. He was just, he would work constantly, I mean, hours and hours. It was the only set I'd ever been on where people struck. The entire crew struck. They gave them a week's warning. We said, we're shutting down at 5:30 on Friday night, so just so you know, because they had to wrap in an hour to wrap up, and then they had to drive an hour and a half to get home. We were out at Shepperton Studios. It wasn't near anybody. And so that night came along, and they waited until scene was finished, and then they said, "Okay, boys," and everybody just started wrapping up, and the producers came flying down. "What are you doing? What are you?" They said, "No, this is what we told you. We're taking our time." And I mean, they said, "Well, Ridley's willing to work." They just looked at it and said, "Ridley's always willing to work." So, no. That was an interesting movie to work on. But I did The Right Stuff. Did anybody see The Right Stuff? And that was Phil Kaufman. And oh God, what a wonderful movie that was. And what great people. And just, I mean, we had so much fun on that movie. I don't know, I can't pick favorites because each guy has a different, or woman. I worked with a wonderful woman director when we did The Good Doctor. And she's terrific. And she had me come and do The Rookie for her. And each person sort of brings their own thing to it. Yeah, so haven't worked it with any real nasty people.
Well, that's good.
So that's good.
So one last question to wrap us up before we let you go, and that is mine.
Oh.
If you, Veronica, could give your character, Amber, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, I don't know. I think she was pretty in control of herself. I mean, she seemed weepy to me. But I don't know that she was really that weepy because she was frustrated. She was just trying to get people to listen to her, you know. Instead, we all kicked the bucket. Nobody listen. Anyway.
All right, guys, thank you. Give it up.
I'm like, what the hell is that? I got it in my back. I'm gonna get to your table when you get it.
Okay, very good.
This water? Yes, and it's new, so if you want it, it's all yours.
They don't pick anyone.
Well, we got